The US and Iran are preparing to formally sign an interim agreement in Switzerland on Friday, marking the first major diplomatic breakthrough since months of conflict disrupted the region. But while the deal has been presented as a framework to end hostilities and reopen key trade routes, the most difficult issue remains unresolved, which is Iran's nuclear program. Now, US President Donald Trump says the agreement makes it loud and clear that Iran will never be allowed to acquire a nuclear weapon. Now, Iran says the nuclear file will be addressed in the next phase of the negotiations, which could determine whether this temporary understanding turns into a comprehensive deal. So what has been agreed so far and what still needs to be negotiated? In this video, we discuss key provisions of the interim deal and what to expect from the next round of negotiations. Let's first understand what has been agreed so far. The interim agreement is expected to be formally signed in Geneva on June 19th. According to officials from both sides, the framework extends the current ceasefire by 60 days and creates a window for negotiations on a broader settlement. The agreement is also expected to facilitate the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, address issues linked to the maritime blockade, and pave the way for discussions on sanctions relief and then release of Iranian frozen funds. However, the full text of the Memorandum of Understanding has not yet been made public. Despite the breakthrough, Iran's nuclear program remains the biggest challenge. Under the 2015 nuclear agreement, Iran had agreed to cap uranium enrichment at 3.67% in exchange for sanctions relief. But after that deal collapsed, Iran steadily expanded its program. Iran increased enrichment levels to 60% purity and built a stockpile of more than 400 kilograms of highly enriched uranium, raising concerns in Washington and amongst its allies. Iran has consistently maintained that its nuclear activities are for peaceful purposes and has denied seeking a nuclear weapon. Speaking on the sidelines of the G7 summit in France, Donald Trump said the agreement addresses Washington's main concern. Trump said Iran would not be allowed to develop, buy or acquire a nuclear weapon under the agreement.
The one thing that's happening that's of note, frankly, the only thing that really matters to me, is Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. And it says it loud and clear. They're not going to develop it, they're not going to buy it, they're not going to do anything with it. And if they do, they suffer unbelievable consequences. Not just a little bit like, I won't even tell you the consequences, but the consequences are the ultimate consequences. And with that being said, I hope we have a very good relationship. But the biggest thing is they will not have a nuclear weapon. And that's the reason I got in, and that's the reason I agreed to sign.
Iran says the agreement has been deliberately divided into two phases. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said the immediate focus is ending the conflict and implementing the ceasefire arrangements. He said nuclear issues have been deferred to the next round of talks.
Because of the difficulties in reaching an agreement between us and the United States, stemming from the criminal aggression by the United States and the Zionist regime against Iran, we ultimately decided to divide the negotiations into two phases. In the first phase, we will negotiate issues related to ending the war, the Strait of Hormuz, the maritime blockade, the release of Iran's frozen funds, reconstruction, and other matters connected to these topics. The aim was to reach a memorandum of understanding on these issues, and then negotiations to continue for 60 days in order to achieve a final agreement. Under the final agreement, decisions will be made on nuclear-related issues and the lifting of sanctions, and we will reach a comprehensive final settlement.
Let's now understand what happens over the next 60 days. The next phase of negotiations is expected to focus on the technical details that could shape a final agreement. Now, among the key issues are the future of Iran's enriched uranium stockpile, whether Tehran agrees to limits on its enrichment levels, the inspection on verification process, the timeline and scope of sanctions relief, the structure of a long-term nuclear agreement. Now, these are the issues that previous negotiations struggled to resolve. Friday's signing in Switzerland could mark the beginning of a new diplomatic process between Washington and Tehran, but the interim agreement does not settle the nuclear issue. Instead, it opens a 60-day negotiating window during which both sides will attempt to bridge differences over enrichment, inspections and sanctions. We'll keep tracking developments and bring you latest updates on this. Stay tuned to Money Control.